صلوا على محمد وآل محمد. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الحمد لله رب العالمين بارئ الخلائق أجمعين باعث الأنبياء والمرسلين، ثم الصلاة والسلام على خير خلقه العبد المؤيد والرسول المسدد، حبيب إله العالمين أبي القاسم المصطفى محمد، وعلى أهل بيته الطيبين الطاهرين وصحابته المنتجبين. صلى الله عليك يا رسول الله، صلى الله عليك يا سيدي ويا مولاي يا أبا عبد الله، يا رحمة الله الواسعة ويا باب نجاة الأمة، ويا عبرة كل مؤمن ومؤمنة مظلوم غريب شهيد كربلاء. يا ليتنا يا ليتنا كنا معكم سادتي فنفوز فوزا عظيمة. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. ادع إلى سبيل ربك بالحكمة والموعظة الحسنة وجادلهم بالتي هي أحسن. صلوا على محمد وآل محمد. A second for the love of Imams al-Hassan wal-Hussein. A third for the love of Fatima al-Zahra with your loudest voices. Today, the world witnesses various Islamic schools of thought, various opinions, various ideologies. Today, we don't just have two Islamic schools of thought. Today, we have schools of thought within schools of thought. You choose any main school in Islam and you will find that school is divided into various schools and opinions and ideologies. And all of these schools today are present. They're present on the scene. They're available. Thanks to technology, they have made their beliefs very available and present. You find them on satellite channels, on YouTube, on social networks such as Facebook and Twitter. These schools of thought are available. They're making their beliefs crystal clear, and they are all looking for customers. They are all looking for followers. Now these various schools of thought, these various directions, these various Muslim scholars and schools of thought, they're on various levels. You will find some, their level of intellectuality is very high. They pose a great school of thought. Great opinions stem from the original sources. On an intellectual level, they're extremely high. You find other groups that no, they lack content. They lack intellectuality. When you come to their thoughts and opinions, you see that it lacks basis, it lacks foundation. And there are some that are in between. Thus, from an intellectual level, these various groups, these various schools of thought vary. They're not all on the same level. When it comes to their way of expression, expressing themselves, expressing their opinions, they also vary on various levels. You will find some, as they express themselves on satellite channels and on YouTube and all over the internet. Some are very well-spoken. Some are soft-spoken, very fluent, very eloquent. They're very accurate in their choice of words and their choice of expressions. They don't offend. They're very politically correct. While you find others that are not so politically correct. They choose the wrong phrases. They don't know how to express themselves. Some even use foul language to express their ideology, their thoughts and opinions. Some use the language of condemnation. They use the language of attacking their opponents and attacking the other side. And what's interesting is, when you look at these various schools of thought, you would assume that the more intellectual ones would have better ways of expression. Their means of da'wah would be more modern, more clean, so to speak. Yet sometimes we see the other way around. Those who have the right opinions and intellectually are on a bigger scale or on a topper scale, these are the ones that are using the wrong expressions. They're expressing themselves in the wrong manner. They're the ones that are using the foul language. They are the ones that are offending others, disrespecting religious and prominent figures from other schools of thought, while you see other groups that lack intellectually. They don't have the basis, they don't have the foundation. When it comes to their content, it's very weak, or they even lack in content, yet they know how to present themselves. They know how to express themselves. They know how to cater to the public and to the masses. And you will find them with the greatest amount of followers because they know how to attract people. Because they know what to say and how to say it to draw people to them. Thus, you would think that there's a formula. If you're progressing intellectually, you should have the most amount of followers, which this is not the formula. This is not how it is all the time. Sometimes you progress intellectually, but you don't have enough followers. Why? That is due to your way of expression. How are you catering to people? How are you drawing the masses? How are you presenting yourself and your ideology and your thoughts and opinions? How are you selling your product? This plays a major role. Your way of da'wah, your way of inviting others to your way, to your school of thought, your way of expression, this plays a very important role in how many followers you have. Sallu ala Muhammad wa ala Muhammad. We, the followers of Ahlul Bayt, have a major responsibility wherever we are, but especially in countries like this, where we enjoy a great deal of, or a relative amount of freedom. How is it that we are calling people to Islam and calling people to the school of thought of Ahlul Bayt? What is our means of da'wah? What is our means of expression? How is it that we're inviting others? Are we inviting others to the school of thought of Ahlul Bayt through condemnation, through foul language, through cursing and swearing, through judging others, condemning others to hell, by telling them that if you don't follow our school of thought, the result is hell? We attract others through hell. We tell them that this is the only way, the other way is hell. Is this a way of attracting others? How is it that we're attracting those that do not follow the school of thought of Ahlul Bayt? How is it that we attract Christians and Jews to our faith and to our school of thought and to our religion? By condemnation, by ridiculing their ideology, by making fun, for example, of the idea of the Trinity, by denying certain events like the Holocaust. How is it that we're attracting people to our school of thought? What is our means of expression and our means of da'wah? Even our children. How do we convince our children that this is the right school of thought and not others? Not the hundreds of others, not the hundreds of other schools of thought that are present today on satellite channels and on the internet, where our children will encounter these opinions in schools of thought. How is it that we're convincing them? By threatening them with hellfire? That if you don't follow this school of thought, you'll have to face hell, and Allah will hate you and Allah will punish you? Or do we have other means? Our youth that are propagating today and get into debates with other Muslims on the internet and on social networking, how is it that they're calling people to their school of thought? Our speakers, our satellite channels, our organizations and Islamic centers, how are we performing da'wah? Sallu ala Muhammad wa ala Muhammad. When we come to the Quran, and the Quran is our judge, our Quran is our teacher. We should come to the Quran when we'd like to have answers, when we'd like to know which path to seek, when there's divisions and there's collisions of opinions and ideas. The Quran should be the judge. The Quran is very clear. The Quran says, "Id'u ila sabili rabbika." Number 1, bil hikmah. Number 2, wal maw'izati al hasana. Number 3, wajadilhum billati hiya ahsan. Number 1, the first means of calling people to your school of thought is through wisdom, al-hikmah. According to scholars, some scholars, they say hikmah means to appeal to people's minds. The first step to get people to follow you and come to your school of thought is to appeal to their reason, appeal to their minds, appeal to their brains, attract their minds and brains. Through the use of reason, through the use of logic, with the help of science, with the help of logical and reasonable justifications. We want to call people to Islam. Don't use dreams, don't make threats, but tell them that Islam makes sense. Show the points in Islam that make sense, and everything in Islam makes sense. We don't have a single ideology, we don't have a single belief or practice, even practice, that doesn't make sense in Islam. Everything makes sense in Islam. Why don't we make this public to everyone? Why don't we let everyone know that everything in Islam makes sense? Everything in Islam appeals to reason and logic. Everything is logical. Wouldn't people follow us? This is one meaning. Other scholars regarding this verse, they say, "Id'u ila sabili rabbika bil hikmah." Call people to the path of Allah through wisdom. What does wisdom mean? Some scholars say wisdom means to say the right thing at the right time. This is wisdom. It's not just the use of logic and reason, but it's the ability to know what to say the right thing at the right time. Two people come to you. Someone's very educated. Someone has a PhD from NYU, for example, and asks you a question. How do you prove that Allah exists? And you receive the same exact question from someone who doesn't have a high school degree. Do you give them the same exact answer? If you give them the same exact answer, this is not wisdom. Because the one who doesn't have a high school degree deserves one answer, and the one who has a PhD from NYU deserves another answer. And this is how the Imams were. Imam Sadiq alayhi salam. Two men would come and ask him, prove to me that Allah exists. But the Imam first sees, how knowledgeable is this person? Where is this person intellectually? He gives an answer according to that person's intellectual capability and capacity. One of them, he would tell him, have you ever been on a ship in the middle of the ocean? Did you get stuck? Was there a storm? The man said yes. He said, where did you turn to? He said, I turned to a higher being. He said, that's Allah. Another person comes, asks the same question, the Imam gives him a different answer, a deeper answer, a more academic answer. This is wisdom. This is hikmah. At some points, you have to be tough. You have to be aggressive. You have to be charismatic. At other times, you have to be soft-spoken. You have to be gentle. Knowing to say the right thing at the right time. This is hikmah. Scholars say, al-hikmah an tada'a ash-shay' fi mawdi'ihi, fi mahallihi. Wisdom is to put things in their right spot. Knowing to put everything in its right spot, this is wisdom. Knowing what to say at the right time, this is wisdom. لا كل ما يعلم يقال. Not everything that you know you should say. Some people think, we have some people today, he goes and reads a couple of books, he comes to Najaf or Qom, he studies for 2 years, he thinks now he's al-alam al-hilli. So he thinks he should say everything that he has. This is a mistake. Not everything should be told. This is part of wisdom. Not that everything that you say, not everything that you have inside you of knowledge, you should go and tell. Imam Sadiq alayhi salam, he would tell one of his companions by the name of Al-Mu'alla ibn Khunais. Al-Mu'alla ibn Khunais was one of the close companions of Imam Sadiq. And he was very knowledgeable. Yet he had one problem. He wouldn't listen to the Imam. He wouldn't take the Imam's advice. The Imam would tell him, Ya Mu'alla, don't tell people secrets about us. People can't handle our maqamat, our levels. People can't handle who an Imam is and what the level of Imam is. You go and tell them, they're going to say you're a liar. They're going to reject you. Mu'alla didn't listen. He went and he told about the secrets of Imamah and the position of Imamah. They killed him. When news reached Imam Sadiq, he said, I told him so. He didn't listen. Thus, al-hikmah is to know what to say at the right time. There was a scholar by the name of Sheikh Wujdani Fakhr. He's very well known. He has a commentary on a book that all of us Hawza students have to read and study. Al-Lum'a Dimashqiyya. It has a commentary called Al-Jawahir Al-Fakhriyya fi Sharh Al-Lum'a Dimashqiyya. He says, he mentions a story in his book. He says, one time I attended a majlis the night of Ashura in Qom. In Qom. He said, I attended the night of Ashura. There's thousands of people sitting. Now you would expect the speaker to be addressing something important, something political, something social, something that benefits the people. He said he was talking about how to use the restroom. How to use the restroom. The night of Ashura. Is this wisdom? We all need to learn how to use the restroom, but not the night of Ashura. This is not wisdom. I myself once attended Salatul Jum'ah, Friday prayer, at UCLA, the University of California at Los Angeles. This is one of the most prestigious universities in America, where there were hundreds of bright students listening, taking time from class, listening to the Friday sermon. The Friday prayer, the Imam of the Friday prayer, for 1 hour he was talking about the benefits of using miswak. For 1 hour. Is this hikmah? This is wisdom? This is not wisdom. Wisdom is to know what to say at the right moment. I remember a couple of years ago, I was in Michigan. I was lecturing. After the lecture, an American lady, an elderly American lady, came and converted. She said her shahadatain. She became a Muslim. After the lecture, she announced her shahadatain and she became a Muslim. One gentleman came, and she was married. One gentleman came and said, Sayyid, tell her that she has to separate from her husband tonight. Tell her she cannot be with her husband in the same room. And she's 60 years old. Tell her. I told him, listen, if I tell her this right now, she's going to walk out of the door and say, forget you and forget your religion. If I have to leave my husband who I've been with for 30 or 40 years, forget you and forget your religion. Give her some time, for God's sake. Give her some time to learn about Islam, and then we'll tell her. This is hikmah. ادعو إلى سبيل ربك بالحكمة. This is very important, brothers and sisters. There are some today, even from the school of thought of Ahlul Bayt. The school of thought of Ahlul Bayt, intellectually, it does not lack. We have the right content, but the problem is with some who present the school of thought of Ahlul Bayt. They're lacking in wisdom. They don't know what to say at the right moment. They don't say the right thing to the right audience. How is it that you're presenting the school of thought of Ahlul Bayt? There are some who think that what they say draws people to the school of thought, while in reality it's pushing people away. It's pushing hundreds, if not thousands of people away from the school of thought of Ahlul Bayt. And they're doing a disservice while they're thinking they're serving the school of thought of Ahlul Bayt. This is one. وَالْمَوْعِظَةِ الْحَسَنَةِ. This is when the first step doesn't work, you come to the second step. When you couldn't attract the intellect, when you couldn't attract their brains, you come and attract their hearts. Through good admonishment, through good advice. ادعو إلى سبيل ربك بالحكمة والموعظة الحسنة. When the first didn't work, you come to the second. You give good advice, positive advice. Like a caring father, like a caring mother. You give good advice, good admonishment. That the path that you're seeking will not get you anywhere. Your actions will not benefit you, they will only harm you. So on and so forth. You give good admonishment, good advice. This is one of the ways we call people to our way. Imam Sadiq alayhi salam, one day saw one of his followers, one of his companions, misbehaving. He had done something. He wanted to give him proper advice, good advice. Look at how the Imam gives him advice. He tells him, Ya Fulan, إن الحسن من كل أحد حسن ومنك أحسن لقربك منا. He tells him, good deeds are good from everyone. Everyone who performs a good deed, it's a good deed. But from you, it's even better. Why? Because you're one of my companions. You're one of my followers. People will look and say, this is a follower of Ja'far ibn Muhammad. You're my follower. Thus, a good deed that comes out of you is even better. وَالْقَبِيحْ مِنْ كُلِّ أَحَدٍ قَبِيحْ وَمِنْكَ أَقْبَحْ لِقُرْبِكَ مِنْهُ. And a bad deed is bad from anyone. Drinking is bad whether it comes out from a Muslim or a non-Muslim. But when it comes out from you, the Imam tells him, it's even uglier. A bad deed is ugly, but if it comes out from you, it's even uglier. Why? Because of your relationship with us. You're connected with us. People say, look, this is a companion of Imam al-Sadiq, but he's drinking. You see what a beautiful admonishment it is? First of all, he tells him, you're one of us. He tells him, you're close to me. Thus, he doesn't put him down. He tells him, you are my follower. You are my companion, but I expect more from you. I expect more from you. I expect more good deeds from you and no bad deeds from you. And this is an admonishment for us as well, brothers and sisters. This is how the world works. Here in America, right now, there was shooting at LAX just a couple of nights ago, correct? Who did it? Was it a Muslim? No, that's why it's not a big deal. That's why it's not a big deal. But let a Muslim do it. Would it be the same? Absolutely not. We'd be hearing about it 24 hours a day on the news. But because it wasn't a Muslim, it's not a big deal. Let it be someone else. That's why I say, when a regular American commits a crime, only one person is judged, that individual. But when me and you, we commit a crime in this country, there's two that are judged. Me and my religion. You and your faith and religion. That's why let's be careful, brothers and sisters. I visit some communities, some countries, and fortunately there are some Muslims that perform fraud. When it comes to insurance, they're the first to perform fraud. When it comes to receiving aid from the government, they're the first to lie to receive more benefits. Isn't this a shame? Isn't this a shame? That you find the first people to lie to receive benefits, the first people to perform insurance fraud are the Muslims. How ugly is this? Because when people look, they don't say, this is Ali or Muhammad or Mustafa. They say, this is Ali the Muslim. This is Mustafa the Muslim who did this crime. Two people, two groups get judged, not one. Thus, the Imam, this is his beautiful admonishment. First of all, he tells him, you're one of me. And then he says, good deeds are good from everyone, but especially you. Because you're my companion, you're close to me. And a bad deed is ugly from everyone, but from you it's even uglier because you're close to me. You're my companion. You're my follower. Beautiful admonishment. But today, when we look at some schools of thought, those who express themselves, we don't see this. We don't see this maw'idha al-hasana. On the contrary, we see them using foul language. We see them, they take certain religious figures and they use foul language and they curse and they condemn. They even swear. Is this al-maw'idha al-hasana that the Quran speaks about? The Quran says, وَلَا تَسُبُّوا الَّذِينَ يَدْعُونَ مِن دُونِ اللَّهِ فَيَسُبُّوا اللَّهَ عَدْوًا مِنْ غَيْرِ عَدْوٍ. Allah says, don't curse those that do not worship Allah, because they'll curse Allah as well. If you curse their God, they will curse your God. If you curse their religious figures, they will curse your religious figures. Eye for an eye, tit for tat. When you curse, they're also going to curse you. When you use foul language against them, they will use foul language against you. Amir al-Mu'mineen says, أَكْرَهُ لَكُمْ أَن تَكُونُوا قَوْمًا سَبَّابِينَ. He tells his companions, don't use foul language. I would hate to see among my companions those who use foul language and swear. Unfortunately, I see a lot of youth on Facebook and Twitter from our school of thought. Forget the others. From our school of thought, they swear. They swear all over the internet, on social networks. It's disgusting. I get disgusted when I see Shia youth swearing on the internet, on Facebook or on Twitter. What sort of impression are you giving of yourself, of your school of thought, of your community, of your parents? Even your parents. There are some that allow others to curse their parents. because of their actions. People will say, may Allah curse the parents of this person. They didn't know how to raise him. Let's learn how to express ourselves. Call others to our school of thought. وَجَادِلْهُمْ بِالَّتِي هِيَ أَحْسَنُ. And if this also failed, if you couldn't attract their brains, because there's something wrong with their brain, and you couldn't attract their hearts, because there's something wrong with their hearts, then you may debate them, but have a positive debate. Have a positive debate. A debate with an aim, with a goal. Don't lose the goal. Don't let the debate get carried away where you lose the aim and the goal. وَجَادِلْهُمْ بِالَّتِي هِيَ أَحْسَنُ. صلوا على محمد وعلى محمد. This is the general outline. This is the general guideline. The Quran says if you want to perform da'wah, if you want to express yourself, if you want to cater to others, if you want to draw others to your school of thought, to your opinions, to your thoughts, this is the general guideline. You follow these 3 steps. And then we see that the Quran gives us practical lessons on da'wah. The Quran gives us practical lessons. For example, in one verse the Quran says, the Quran teaches Rasulullah. The Quran tells Rasulullah that when you have a discourse, when you have a dialogue with the mushrikeen, with the kuffar, this is what you say. وَإِنَّا أَوْ إِيَّاكُمْ لَعَلَى هُدًى أَوْ فِي ضَلَالٍ مُبِينٍ. Tell them that either I am right or you are right. Don't tell them that you're right. Don't tell them that I possess the truth and you're wrong. I'm going to heaven and you're going to hell. Don't say any of this. Tell them, let's have a debate. And at the end of the day, I could be right or I could be wrong. And you could be right or you could be wrong. Of course, who's right? Who's with the truth? Rasulullah. Does anyone doubt that? Does even Rasulullah doubt this? Of course not. But Allah tells him, say it to them. When you call them, when you're performing da'wah, tell them that there is a chance you could be right. You might think, well, this doesn't solve the purpose. If you're telling them they could be right, then they're not going to be convinced. They're going to accept their own ideology. No. When you tell them they could be right, this leaves room for debate. This leaves room for debate. This is going to allow them to come, put their thoughts and opinions forward, try to argue for their thoughts, try to argue for their opinions. And if you're good enough, you can convince them that their thoughts and opinions are wrong. But if you condemn them from the beginning, and you tell them that they are wrong and you are right, you're closing the door of what? Debate and discourse. You're not even going to give them a chance to listen to you or express their thoughts and opinions. You've shut the door of discourse. But tell them they could be right. Tell them to express themselves. Tell them to come and have a dialogue with you. If you're good enough, you'll prove yourself right. This is the ethics of da'wah in the Quran, brothers and sisters. The Quran doesn't say condemn. The Quran doesn't say tell them they're going to hell and don't speak to them. No. This is the ethics of da'wah. There are many that come and ask me, what happens to those who do not follow the school of thought of Ahlul Bayt? Are they going to hell? I never say yes. And I never say no. It's an open-ended, I always give open-ended answers. Never condemn anyone to hell. Even if you're asked about specific individuals. Even if you're asked about specific individuals. What do you think of this Sahabi or this companion of Rasulullah? Is he going to heaven or hell? Never say he's going to hell. Having an opinion, having a belief is one thing, but telling others is something else. Don't condemn. Because as soon as you condemn, he's not going to listen to you any longer. Give room for debate. Give room for discourse. Say, I don't know. Say that he who follows the path of Rasulullah will end up in heaven. But let's come and see who followed Rasulullah, who didn't follow Rasulullah. This is the manner of debate, brothers and sisters. Let's learn. Let's learn from the Quran how to debate. In another verse, again, we're taught how to debate. The Quran says, قُلْ يَا أَهْلَ الْكِتَابِ. Allah teaches Rasulullah what to say. This is one of the most beautiful verses in the Quran. قُلْ يَا أَهْلَ الْكِتَابِ تعالوا إلى كلمة سواء بيننا وبينكم ألا نعبد إلا الله ولا نشرك به شيئا. Allah tells the Prophet, call the mushrikeen, call the people of the book, call Christians and Jews. The first thing you talk about with them is your commonalities, what you have in common. Don't talk about your differences. Talk about what you have in common with them. Tell them that we worship the same God. Our God is the same. We don't disagree. وَقُولُوا آمَنَّا بِالَّذِي أُنزِلَ إِلَيْنَا وَأُنزِلَ إِلَيْكُمْ وَإِلَهُنَا وَإِلَهُكُمْ وَاحِدٌ. Tell them that we don't have a different God and you have a different God. No, our God is the same. Start with what you have in common, not what you disagree with. This is very important. When you want to convince someone that your school of thought is correct, you're drawing someone to your school of thought, first start with what you have in common. What we have in common with other schools of thought, we have the same God, we have the same Qibla, we have the same Prophet, we have the same book, we have the same Salah. Our practices are the same. Yes, we disagree over 20% or 30% of our ideology and practices. But we have 70%. Let's agree that we have 70% in common. This has a psychological effect. In performing da'wah, when you start with what you have in common, this has a psychological effect. What is that effect? You're giving a message that you're not foreign, that you're not weird, that you're not a freak, that you're one of them. You're from the same religion. And you have a lot of practices and ideology together in common, but there's a few differences. There's already enough rumors about us that we're different and that we're weird. They know that there's some parts of the world, there's rumors that we Shia, we have a different Quran. You have a different Quran. There are some that purposely pose this misconception so that they cut off the room for discourse, so that no one will come speak to you. Why? Because you have a different Quran. Why should I come speak to you? In some parts of the world, they spread rumors that we Shia, we have tails. Did you know this? There's some parts of Morocco and Algiers and even in Syria, they spread rumors that we Shia, we have tails. I have a Shia friend in Syria. He said that someone asked me, he told me, listen, I want to ask you a private question, but don't be offended. Do you Shias really have tails? He said, oh, you didn't know? Yes, we do. And on full moons, we turn into werewolves. And on some nights, we're even vampires. You should be careful. There's such rumors. Why should we make it even worse? There are some who, when get into a dialogue or a debate, the first thing they discuss is the differences. They want to make a scene. They want to throw a bomb. They want to become famous all of a sudden. So the first thing they address is something controversial. Or they mention something that's a difference. They'll mention something about Aisha or about one of the grand Sahaba. Why? What kind of people are you trying to attract? How many followers are you trying to attract when you use this sort of method? And another verse, the Quran also tells us the ethics of da'wah. قُلْ لِلَّذِينَ أُوتُوا الْكِتَابَ وَالْأُمِّيِّينَ أَأَسْلَمْتُمْ فَإِنْ أَسْلَمُوا فَقَدْ اهْتَدَوْا وَإِنْ تَوَلَّوْا فَإِنَّمَا عَلَيْكَ الْبَلَاغُ. One of the ethics of da'wah is that you can't force your opinions on others. The Quran says to the Prophet, tell the people of the book, do you believe? If they believe, this is excellent. If they don't believe, your job is done. As long as you've delivered the message, your job is done. Don't kill yourself. This is one of the ethics of da'wah. That if you get rejected, if people didn't follow you, don't make it personal. You have a message to deliver. The message of Ahlul Bayt. Whoever wishes to listen, you are more than welcome. If they don't listen, don't make it personal. Don't kill yourself. Don't stress over it. Don't have a headache. Your job is done. This is among the ethics of da'wah. And among the ethics of da'wah is when Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala sends Musa and Harun to Fir'aun. What does he tell them? He says, اذهبا إلى فرعون إنه طغى فقولا له قولا لينا لعله يتذكر أو يخشى. Fir'aun, who declared himself not just a god, but the greatest of gods. فحشر فنادى فقال أنا ربكم الأعلى. I'm your greatest God. Yet Allah, when He sends Musa and Harun, He says, when you go to him, speak to him softly, gently. فَقُولَا لَهُ قَوْلًا لَيِّنًا. Don't speak harsh to him. Don't be aggressive. Don't shout. Don't scream. Don't condemn him. Speak to him gently, softly. This is the ethics of da'wah. When we come to Imam Hossein alayhi salam, and as we commemorate him in these blessed nights of Muharram, we see that on the day of Ashura, the first thing that the Imam did was he appealed to the intellect of his enemies. When he stood on the battleground in Ashura, the first thing he said, look at me, see who I am. Am I not the grandson of Rasulullah? Am I not the son of Fatima al-Zahra? انسبوني ثم انظروا من أنا. أليس جدي رسول الله؟ أليست أمي فاطمة؟ أليس حمزة سيد الشهداء عمي؟ أليس جعفر الطيار عمي? He appealed to their intellect. Look at me, who am I? Am I not the grandson of Rasulullah? Am I not the only grandson of Rasulullah? But how is it that you're fighting me? How is it that you're forbidding me from drinking water and forcing me to give allegiance to someone who should be giving me allegiance, not receiving allegiance from me? Number one, he appealed to their intellect. But when he found that they have no intellect, he appealed to their hearts. He gave them an admonishment, al-maw'idha al-hasana. He said, Ya ala Abi Sufyan, in lam yakun lakum deen, وكنتم لا تخافون المعاد فكونوا أحرارا في دنياكم إن كنتم عربا كما تزعمون. O the nation of Abu Sufyan, if you have no faith and no religion and do not believe in the next life, at least be free in your lives. Don't be slaves to Yazid and Ibn Ziyad. Be free. And this appeals to their hearts, because every man, every human being wishes to be free. We humans were created to be free, not to be slaves. Slaves to Allah, but free from ourselves, shaitan, and other human beings. Yet, this didn't work with them. The Imam appealed to their intellect, it didn't work. He appealed to their hearts, it didn't work. Everything failed with this nation that was possessed by shaitan. Imam Hussein alayhi salam was asked to give allegiance to the dictator of his time, Yazid. Yazid, the son of Muawiyah, the son of Abu Sufyan. Which person was asking allegiance from which person? Yazid, who never believed in Allah for a single day, nor did his father Muawiyah, nor did his grandfather Abu Sufyan, nor did his grandmother Hind. A person like Yazid, with a father like Muawiyah, with a grandfather like Abu Sufyan, with a grandmother like Hind, was asking allegiance from a person like Imam Hussein, the son of Amir al-Mu'mineen, the grandson of Rasulullah. His grandmother is Fatima, his grandmother is Khadija. Who's more worthy of receiving allegiance? That is why in Medina, the last night that the Imam spent in Medina, when the governor of Al-Medina, Al-Walid summons the Imam and asks for allegiance in the presence of Marwan ibn al-Hakam, the Imam said, this is absurd. Inna ahlu bayt al-nubuwah wa mawda' al-rasala. We're the family of Rasulullah. You're asking me to give allegiance to someone else while I should be receiving allegiance? We're the household of the Prophet. The Quran was revealed in our house. The message was delivered from my house, from our house. Our house was a place for angels to descend and ascend. And you ask me to give allegiance to a man like Yazid, an alcoholic, corrupt man like Yazid? إنا أهل بيت النبوة وموضع الرسالة بنا فتح الله وبنا يختم ويزيد رجل فاسق فاجر شارب للخمور قاتل للنفس المحترمة ومثلي لا يبايع مثله. A person like me will not give allegiance to a person like him. And that night the Imam decides to leave Medina and to approach Mecca and to announce in Mecca that he will begin a revolution, and from there head to Kufa. That night the Imam spends his last night in Medina. And on a night like this, the first night of Muharram, we mentioned the story of how the Imam left Medina and bids farewell to his grandfather Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa alayhi. The Imam comes to the grave of Rasulullah to say his last farewell. He sits next to the grave. He cries, he sheds tears, because this is the last time that he's gathered next to the grave of his grandfather Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa alayhi. He sheds his tears, and then he lies down next to the grave of Rasulullah and he falls asleep. And in his sleep he sees his grandfather approaching him, with thousands of angels approaching the Imam. When Imam Hussein saw his grandfather in his dream, it's as if he saw him in reality. He says, ضمني عندك يا جدا في هذا الضريح قد سئمت الحياة يا جدا ضمني عندك في هذا القبر ولا حاجة لي في الرجوع إلى الدنيا. My grandfather, Ya Rasulullah, keep me inside, keep me with you inside in this grave. I no longer wish to come back to this life. Rasulullah answers his grandson Hossein, Waladi ya Hossein, إنا قد اشتقنا إليك أنا وأبوك وأمك وأخوك قد اشتقنا إليك وإن الجنان قد تزينت إليك. My dear grandson Hussein, me and your mother, your father, your brother miss you dearly. Paradise is welcoming you. There's a special place for you in paradise. However, there's one stage that you must pass. وَإِنَّ لَكَ دَرَجَةً فِي الْجَنَّةِ لَا تَنَالُهَا إِلَّا بِالشَّهَادَةِ. My dear grandson, you will not be able to come unless you pass a major test. What is that test, my grandfather? That test is you will have to pass martyrdom. Your blood will be shed in Karbala. You will have to taste thirst in Karbala. You and your children, Ya Hussein, head to that land, the land of Karbala, Karbala. The Imam wakes up, He says his farewell to his grandfather, and then he goes to another grave, a very lonely grave, a grave without visitors, a grave that no one knows where it is, the grave of his mother Fatima. He sits on that grave one last time. He says his farewell to his mother Fatima. As he leaves the city of Medina, the Imam remembers the city where he was raised, where he grew up. He remembers his father, he remembers his father, he remembers his mother Fatima. Medina, Medina, Medina. The Imam sets towards Mecca. لا حول ولا قوة إلا بالله العلي العظيم. إنا لله وإنا إليه راجعون. نسألك اللهم وندعوك باسمك العلي العظيم. اللهم لا تدع. Raise your hands in dua, brothers and sisters. اللهم لا تدع لنا ذنبا إلا غفرته، ولا هما إلا فرجته، ولا عيبا إلا سترته، ولا خوفا إلا آمنته، ولا رزقا إلا بسطته، ولا شملا إلا جمعته، ولا مرضا إلا شفيته، ولا غائبا إلا حفظته وأدنيته، ولا حاجة من حوائج الدنيا والآخرة لك فيها رضا ولنا فيها صلاح إلا قضيتها ويسرتها يا أرحم الراحمين. ولأرواح المؤمنين والمؤمنات والعلماء والشهداء نقرأ سورة الفاتحة مع الصلوات.